What the heck is an audiophile? Has the term become overused / misinterpreted to mean something totally different? What should our main focus be? All these answers and more can be had by swiping your credit card, and just kidding. Stick around, homie, let's talk about it. Greetings, friendo. Welcome aboard. Stuart Charles here, HomeStudioBasics.com, helping you make sound decisions leading to a beautiful audio experience that will make you fall in love with music, not gear, all over again. So, what is an audiophile? The definition from Merriam-Webster's dictionary defines it as the following: a person who is enthusiastic about high-fidelity sound reproduction. Here's another definition: a person with an interest in high-fidelity sound reproduction and its associated technology. The key word here is high fidelity, not the movie with John Cusack. What does high fidelity actually mean? I think it really depends on who you are, because I can perceive high fidelity completely differently than the next guy. Is there a clear-cut definition of high fidelity? That would be hard to quantify, as there's been a lot of really great gear that's come out over the last 5 to 10 years. That probably wouldn't be considered hi-fi to the people that spend tens of thousands of dollars on equipment. But does that mean that the people who buy more affordable stuff aren't audiophiles? What is hi-fi and what isn't? I'm not sure we can really say with any amount of certainty. The problem with the modern audiophile is that he or she does not fit the mold of the definition above. But here's another issue. Notice how I didn't say an audiophile is a deranged lunatic on the internet who gets mad at you for having an opinion contrary to his own. Because let's be honest, to an extent that's what it's turned into. Even going off of that definition from Webster's, I wouldn't consider myself an audiophile. I enjoy music regardless of if it theoretically sounds bad or not as good as it could sound to another person. If someone tells me my setup isn't ideal, I really couldn't care less, and neither should you. And that's the distinction. Wikipedia says an audiophile is a person who is enthusiastic about high-fidelity sound reproduction. An audiophile seeks to reproduce the sound of a live musical performance, typically in a room with good acoustics. It is widely agreed that reaching this goal is very difficult, and that even the best-regarded recording and playback systems rarely, if ever, achieve it. Wow, there's a lot to unpack there. I would say that I do fit the definition of desiring a more live-sounding performance, so in that sense, I am part audiophile, I suppose. Things like instrument timbre, spacing, soundstage width and depth, attack, sustain, and decay all get my nads pumping. I absolutely enjoy that aspect of sound, and I've talked about it ad nausea here on the blog and channel, namely my initial experiences with an array of headphones like the HE400i, Focal Utopia, Odyssey LCD3, etc. I'll leave links down below for all of those. The problem is that I think that audio companies tend to over-exaggerate their claims and make it seem like achieving that goal of live reproduction is all but guaranteed, when in actuality it isn't. A couple of years ago I attended Audio Advice's Music Matters, a lot of irony there, here in Raleigh, North Carolina, and it was a lot of fun. I got a chance to demo a lot of products and met some cool people, and even made some friends. One thing that stood out in my mind, and something I will never forget, is the Klipsch rep who almost immediately singled me out and invited me back to his room. I had a beer in hand and figured, wow, he definitely isn't going to try and take advantage of me. Nah, so I nonchalantly moseyed into the room and there were 2 speakers set up. Phew, I thought, I'm not going to get sexually assaulted today. He told me to sit in the middle of the room and take my clothes off. I mean, have a listen to some songs. But not before closing my eyes and opening my mouth. Just kidding. He played me some music and it sounded great. When I came to, I thought, wow, I'm a real audiophile now. All I need is a lobotomy and some tights.
You don't have any goals?
Oh, but I do.
Yeah?
I want to be just like you. I figure all I need's a lobotomy and some tights.
Jokes aside, it was this over-the-top, completely unnecessary flamboyance about the product that rubbed me the wrong way. No pun intended. I'll never forget what he said to me immediately after the demo was over. It's like you're there, right? I mean, sort of, I replied in a low-key, nonchalant, ho-hum manner. What he said next frightened me as he began to approach my chair. Well, that's not good enough for the folks here at Klipsch Audio, Stu. How did you know my name? I gasped, trembling in my chair. Just kidding, I made that part up.
Oh my God, that is funny!
Now, this would have been completely fine if it wasn't painfully obvious that he was trying to sell me something. Imagine a used car salesman at the shadiest dealership ever.
Yeah, but that Truecoat.
Only he's an audiophile and talking way louder, bordering on yelling. Quit yelling! This is my problem with audiophiles. Is it really about the music? Does the music really matter? Or is it about wild and unsubstantiated claims, product shilling, and making a lot of money off of unsuspecting noobs? Because from where I stand, people are still placing way too much emphasis on the gear and not discussing music. It's like pulling teeth to get people to talk about it. The other part of it is that oftentimes, the people who are satisfied with their more affordable gear are scoffed at and ridiculed. They would be able to discern a difference in DAC A versus B if they only had X headphones, or Y cables, or the amp that gives you hand jobs if you ask nicely enough. This sort of thing is ruining audio in my opinion. I think according to the pure definition of the word, we're all audiophiles if we all love sound. I like how Steve Guttenberg put it when responding to the audiophiles care more about their equipment than the music claim. He goes on to say, some do, most don't. The gear provides access. It's the portal through which we hear our music. The better the speakers, headphones, amplifier, turntable, or digital converter, the better the music sounds. When I play a recording that I've enjoyed dozens of times over the years through a new speaker that reveals heretofore unheard details, like the way a singer phrases a line, or the drummer accented the beat a certain way, that's huge. The band may have struggled to get those things just so, but I might have never noticed those details before. Better gear might make the difference, and in the end, the gear serves the music. I like this quote a lot, but I don't necessarily think that better gear equals better sound due to the law of diminishing returns. I won't get into that much here as I've talked about it many times previously, but I love the bit about unheard details. That is definitely something that everyone will experience, and thus why the majority of folks do end up going down the rabbit hole. The other issue is that even despite what he's saying, which is true in theory, people still end up just talking about the gear per my own experiences. What with the hundreds and hundreds of comments on my blog and channel, probably into the thousands at this point. It's like a disease. Now you could argue, well, they're just asking because they want to achieve the best sound possible. True, but at what point do we just stop obsessing about that and buy something? While I don't think every product is for every person, there are so many great setups out there. It almost becomes silly trying to find the perfect match because you're always going to be on the hunt for better. There's always going to be an upgrade no matter what. People will always look for excuses to buy more crap. And trust me on that. I've talked to hundreds of newcomers at this point and they're fully aware of what begins to happen. Take this example, which is just one of many. Was thinking about a Woo Audio WA11 or WA8 with a Focal Utopia, but for the money I might just go for an electrostatic setup which I have heard nothing but good reviews and praise. Then he goes on to say, typical of an audiophile, get a setup that I am happy with and listen to it as I surf the internet for my next setup. Read that again. Typical of an audiophile, get a setup that I am happy with and listen to it as I surf the internet for my next setup, LOL. It's so true. I can't even begin to tell you how many people get caught in this trap, chasing a unicorn that doesn't exist. I speak with 7 years of experience now and the better part of the last 4 giving a lot of advice. It really doesn't matter that much. I really couldn't care less about gear now that I've heard over 100 headphones and just about 50 amps and DACs. Just get a setup and be done with it, because diminishing returns is a real thing. Yes, the hobby of listening on different setups can be fun if you're newer or even just an enthusiast, but most people aren't. They just want something that they can use for many years to come and be happy with the purchase. Most people are just regular people, and that's another issue with reviewers. For whatever reason, they don't get it. The people who thank me for helping them understand that and appreciate where I'm coming from, because even though I'm technically a marketer, at the end of the day I'm not really trying to sell you something per se. I'm trying to help you. You came to me with a question. I didn't seek you out and blast you with sales calls, upsells, or some sort of pitch. Ultimately, all I can do is give my honest answers and opinions and my own experience. Check out this definition from the Cambridge Dictionary, which perhaps explains the crux of the entire problem. An audiophile, a person who is very interested and enthusiastic about equipment for playing recorded sound and its quality. To me, that's damning and speaks to the dilemma that we're currently in. The only explanation for there being thousands of DACs on the market is that of money. How many of them can you honestly tell me are necessary? I'll say it again. How many of them can you honestly tell me are necessary? I'll wait. I would imagine that number is very small in reality. I will say that hearing great sound does make you curious about what else is out there, and I'd be lying if I said that I'm not an eensy-weensy bit intrigued by the thought of hearing a really expensive setup, as in the one that you can hear God with. But I've told many people who can attest to this. If I had the money to spend on a final setup, I'd likely get a Focal Utopia, a really good amp, and a really good DAC, and be done with it forever. From my own experience, there isn't anything out there that even comes close to the high fidelity reproduction that the Utopia is capable of. It's simply a pitch perfect sound, and I think everyone should get a chance to listen to it. If there were ever a time to shill something, shilling a Utopia would make the most sense because it does actually represent that pinnacle that most people end up chasing. Are there better headphones than the Utopia? Probably, but I really don't care. If we're being honest, most audiophile headphones sound mostly good. I think it boils down to finding your most preferred sound signature and buying based on that. I.e., do you prefer more bass or less? A more forward mid-range or somewhat relaxed? Brighter treble or darker treble? Closed or open? What types of music do you mostly listen to? These are all questions that a person should ask before diving in. From there, your taste may or may not change depending on the amount of gear you try. I will say that nowadays I prefer a more rolled off bass versus a boosted one, and yes, that took a lot of demoing products and trying new things. So in that sense, maybe the hobby isn't quite the detriment that I'm making it out to be. But I will still caution people to not be one of those guys who collects headphones. It's really not a good look, and trust me, I've been there. If you're interested in the Utopia, check out my experience down below. You can also click here to the right to get there. I'll see you over there.